Well, the game isn't even released yet, and here we are talking about the future for Starfield post-launch. We already know of one with Shattered Space, and I'm sure there are many more on the way. Think back to Fallout 4 with Nuka World and Far Harbor, or Skyrim with Dawnguard and Dragonborn. Bethesda hasn't missed out on being able to add more to their games after releases, and we already know that there will be a ton of DLC for the game, but what will it look like? And what is up guys, Andrew from the Denmen here, and today I wanted to take a look at what Shattered Space and other DLC would look like in Starfield. With the game right around the corner, I think it is the perfect time to discuss what we might be seeing. Now this is highly speculative, none of this is confirmed, but I like the idea of starting a conversation on what we could be seeing. So if you enjoy, make sure you leave a like and comment what you want to see from post-launch content in Starfield. We will be going off things we already know about the game to see if we could map out what we could be seeing. So with that being said, we have a lot to go over, so kick back, strap in your seat, and let's blast off into today's video. So Starfield will be a massive game right from when it releases. We've said this so many times already, but the fact is we will be seeing over 1,000 planets to explore and 250,000 lines of dialogue. This is an insane amount just from an outside looking in, especially from an exploration side. The planets in particular interest me because there is a lot that they could be doing with them after the game is released. Really, I just want to see Starfield as an ever-evolving world, and it makes sense in terms of the game. People will continue to expand out onto different planets further and further out, and with that, more quests will become available as well. Think about it like this: what if the United Colonies sent out settlers to different worlds across the system and began to colonize each one? It will feel a lot like the town of Far Harbor from the respective DLC, with dangers for people everywhere you turn, and the player will have to help around as much as they can. Maybe they could go even further into that Far Harbor vibe with having multiple factions vying for a single planet due to a powerful artifact or resource that is situated there. If they do decide to go down the path that the factions will be separated throughout their questlines during the main game, a good place to continue something like the Colony War would be in DLC content. Personally, I think this is exactly how Shattered Space will play out. I mean, just look at the name, Shattered Space. It gives us just a little to go off on with the DLC. Let's break this down. The name Shattered Space could mean a number of different things, but in my opinion, it means that the factions will be fighting against one another for control of a potential new resource or system. I can really see them having the Freestar Collective and United Colonies fighting over a planet or an entire system, and the player has to choose between the two. Both of them will have forward camps on planets and space stations to make it really feel like the two are at odds with one another. This can be something that will really hammer home the choices and consequences you make during Starfield. They could go down the road of expanding on existing planets, which will flesh out many of the desolate planets out there, or if they decide to add more systems to the game, it could be something entirely new. We're gonna go deeper into this a little later on, but personally I would like them to use the space they already have and make it that much better, but I can see the appeal of adding an entire new system that looks wildly different from the rest of the game. I can really see Bethesda doing something like this to continue the story they have set up for the game and just add on to the depth of the many worlds. It would definitely be interesting to see what a war in space will look like in Starfield, so I hope we get this at some point for the game. Now, another possibility for Shattered Space is something that ties heavily into the main story. When we take a look at the artifacts and what characters in the game have been saying about them, we start to learn that humans were not the ones who created them, and that leaves the door wide open for aliens to come into the game. I'm gonna say now though that I have no idea how it will play out, and this is highly speculative, but what if this artifact is some sort of a beacon, and when we combine all the pieces together, a signal is sent out? From this, we come into contact with an intelligent alien race. I like the idea of them continuing what was given during the main quest, with them fleshing out what will happen afterwards when aliens begin to inhabit the settled systems. What I wouldn't want is for it to feel like cut content, but something that is a continuation of what was already established. Aliens are, at least in my opinion, likely the next step when it comes to Starfield, but it depends on which route they will go down. We could see a number of things play out, like them being hostile or friendly, and each of these comes with their very own different story points. I imagine that if we were to see them, they might take over one of the planets in the game and potentially morph it. This could change how we view different worlds in the game, with them getting somewhat of an upgrade. This all kind of blends well with the idea of Shattered Space as well, because I'm assuming some of the more powerful factions in the game will investigate what is going on with the new alien species. From there, we could see a number of different storylines play out, all of which has me excited. Continuing on though, I want to go a little deeper into the idea that they will be adding an entire new solar system or planet for the DLCs. If we were to see a new planet or system added to the game, I wouldn't want it like any of the others we will see already. I'm just assuming here that once Bethesda will start rolling out DLC, players will be massively overleveled with the best type of gear. In my opinion, a good way to offset this would be to add a sort of endgame area where there are harder enemies, better loot, and possibly even different mechanics. I mean, we got this a little bit with Far Harbor and Nuka World, with Far Harbor having the irradiated fog throughout the island that would make it even more important to wear armor with rad resistance. We also got to see a lot harder enemies in my opinion as well, with gulpers, anglers, and fog crawlers. What if we were to continue this into Starfield? It would only make sense, Bethesda could add a new solar system that is completely unexplored that nobody even knew about until it was discovered by the player. They could even add it where multiple factions will descend onto the new planet or system to claim it as their own, or they could go down the route of adding an entirely new faction for the DLC. What is important though is that it will serve as Starfield's endgame location with harder enemies and better loot to find. To make it really different, they could even add their own mechanic to the DLC that sets it apart from the rest of the game. Maybe there are gravity wells scattered throughout the planet that the closer you travel to them, the slower you get, lower you can jump, and potentially slowing down the velocity of your guns. This is only one way they could change it up, because we could be seeing a number of different gameplay variations like very different day and night cycles, and depending on what time it is, the harder the creatures of that world will become. Say if it was nighttime, the enemies will become more durable and hit harder, and maybe even have different variations to the creatures of that world. I don't know though, these are just a couple of ideas, but any way to make it a little different and more difficult from the base game is the goal here, and I can really see them going down this route in the future. I imagine that if we were to see new planets, they would have to be different from what we were already exploring, so I expect to see even more after Starfield is released. This goes beyond just shattered space, because I imagine there will be a couple of large story expansions, so hey, who knows, maybe it is possible for us to get a new solar system or planet in post-launch content. Lastly, I want to take a step back from the big story-driven content like what we assume Shattered Space to be and take a look back at what we got in Fallout 4 for DLC. Well, there were 6 in total, starting with Automatron, Wasteland Workshop, Far Harbor, followed by the Contraptions Workshop, then the Vault-Tec Workshop, and finally with Nuka World. What do 3 of these all have in common? That they all have something to do with the workshop building feature. Even when you take a look at the other 3 big story ones, they still had something to do with Fallout 4 settlements. Even when you take a look all the way back to Skyrim, even that had somewhat of a building experience with Hearthfire, so at this point it's safe to say that Starfield will have some as well. We kind of have an idea of what we will be getting with Outpost building, but we might see an update to that with more things to build after the game is released. Personally, I like the idea of being able to build your own space station because it just sounds awesome. They can take what they have done with Outpost building and apply it to creating your own space station. Both of them will be from the same design, but work in a lot of different ways. I imagine that having a space station will revolve more around having spaceships play a central focus, while your outpost will be about farming resources. I actually really like the idea of having a space station as your own, but they can take the idea of outpost building even further by adding more ways to create your settlement on each of the worlds. We know from the Starfield Direct we will be seeing the basics for the building mechanics like hiring your own crew, farming stations, and sleeping quarters. My hope is they will evolve this over time like what they did with Fallout 4. What if we were able to house members of bounty hunter factions and with them came quests set out to become a bounty hunter? Or maybe we can trap creatures of the planet you are on and slowly train them over time to become friendly towards you. There is definitely a lot that we could be seeing when it comes to outpost building in Starfield post-launch if it will not already be in the game. I really hope that Bethesda decides to continue to update the outpost system for the game, because from what it looks like already, it could be something that people will sink hours into. We are just over 2 months from release and the hype is really starting to set in. Just from what we saw in the Starfield Direct, this game looks to be something that I could sink thousands of hours into and never get bored. I'm just glad we will be seeing some level of post-launch content because there is so much potential on this end. From the first one with Shattered Space to wherever the game takes us next, I'm really excited to finally get to play Starfield and all that it has to offer. But until then, that is all for me now though guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment any videos you want to see in the future and I'll see you all next time.